So today I'm going to be building an office chair. This is one that we got from Costco as a Christmas present for my wife. She wanted it among a few other things. So we're going to be replacing her crummier office chair that you see off to the right with this better quality one. Now this is a pretty simple process. Most of them are almost exactly the same. There's just a few key components. So this is the seat. This is the bottom bracket with the lever to actuate the hydraulic cylinder, which is what causes it to go up and down. Backing, wheels, and then the sort of starfish thing that holds the wheels. It's basically to distribute the load, keep the thing from tipping over. These typically come with a set of hardware, right? And this Allen key. This one's actually pretty decent, sometimes not very good. And as you'll notice, there are two types of bolts. You have the longer bolts and the shorter bolts. The longer bolts are typically for holding the back onto the base, and the shorter bolts are usually for holding this base under the seat. Now, typically you'll notice that the base will have something that indicates where the front is, right? So it has the sticker that says front. You don't actually need to know that if the sticker is missing. It's not an issue to figure out what side faces front, because you'll have this backing piece with the bolt holes which will hold the backing in. So you just look for this and you know this goes toward the back. So let's go ahead and start the basic assembly of this. So we'll start with the easiest part, which is just setting up the sort of starfish with the wheels. Got this starfish thing here. I'll flip it upside down and just kind of align each one of these things in here, and then push it down. And some of them go in easier than others. I think only one really went in easily. That one went in. Watch your fingers. Easily smush your finger doing this. Alright, so there's like 3 of them that aren't going in easy. Got one to comply. That one. Okay, so I found a little technique, at least with these particular ones. You kind of just put your thumb there and then you push. All of these should not be right. Now we go ahead and we add our cylinder. It just kind of pops in there like this. Not really much science to that. So then we move that out of the way. We get our seat bottom. Right. So obviously the wider part is the front. I'm gonna flip this over. Go ahead and place this thing on. And align the bolt holes. So with the bolt holes aligned, we're going to go ahead and put 4 screws in. You'll notice that there's usually like a blue Loctite on these. That's just to keep the thread locked in. And these are Allen head bolts. I'll go ahead and just lightly thread them in by hand. Don't just automatically torque them all the way down. Get all 4 of them in there slightly at first. And they're heavily oiled to keep them from rusting. Now, you could sit here and use the tool that comes with them, right? You could use this tool. In my case, I'm gonna go ahead and use this Allen extension for this drill, and just go ahead and do the following. And I'll tighten them diagonally, kind of like crisscross pattern. Mainly so that they go down evenly, right? Then I'll hit them with a little bit of torque. Obviously don't overdo it because you could strip the threads in the threaded inserts. But alright, now that I have this done, now I need to attach the backing piece. Once I've attached the backing piece, all I have to do is take this entire structure and drop it on our cylinder. For this next part, you're going to need a table, or you could even use the box that this thing came in, but I prefer to use a table just because it's more sturdy. So you'll lay the seat portion face down on the table, and you'll come over with your backing portion and just slide it into this assembly. So kind of have to close up. There you are. Now this is in place, and I'll go ahead and I'll put in the screws again, just lightly threading them in by hand, just to hold this in place. And you'll notice I always put the bolts in a crisscross pattern, right? Always go diagonal and then across. That kind of helps with your alignment. And tightening it in that order helps to tighten it down evenly. Alright. So that's held together pretty nicely. We'll go ahead and tighten those down. You've got your 4 bolts here, and again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, so I did everything in the same crisscross pattern I mentioned. We can go back and give it another round, and that just makes sure that they seat all the way down. I can actually feel that through the other side where they pop out. I can feel that they're all now more or less sticking out the same amount. So now, with this done, all we have to do is move on to the final part. So if you're curious about how the lift mechanism works, it's actually pretty simple. If you look at this bottom part, right, here's your actuator lever that you're going to hit in order to drop the chair or to raise it if you're not putting load on it. So inside the hole here, this lever is actually just moving a little bracket. Let's see if I can get that on film for you guys. Okay, so if you look at that, see that little movement in there? That's just like a little bracket, a little plate that's just moving and would be pushing on the button for the air cylinder. So looking down at the air cylinder, you'll notice there's this red button on top. That is the button to actuate it. It'll cause it to expand or contract if you're putting load on it. I'm not going to push it now, obviously, because there's no weight on it. But I'm going to go ahead and install the rest of the chair on it, and then this assembly process is done. Alright. So I'll now come in with my upper portion. I'll align that hole with the flap in it to the top of the air cylinder. And let it drop. And that's that. Now we can sit on this, right, just to make sure it's on nice and tight. And now it will work as intended when you pull that lever. One last final thing you may want to do is some of this stuff, especially the bolts, they come from the factory coated in like an oil, and sometimes that gets on some of the parts, so you may want to wipe this down with a rag just to clean off any oil so you're not getting yourself dirty when you're using this thing. sure that the things that you interact with are clear any oils. This is pretty dirty, so there's definitely some stuff on there. Some of that's also like release film from the molds and stuff. Alright, well that's that. The chair is now assembled and ready for use. So I can illuminate this thing, pop this where it goes. Final thing I'll do is get rid of this desiccant pack and this tag. And with that, we are completely done with this process, and my wife now has a good office chair that's not going to wreck her back or fall apart on her as the other one was basically doing. If you've enjoyed this video, please feel free to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you're notified when I post another video. If you have any feedback, any comments on how I can do this better, feel free to leave that in the comments section. And as always, thank you for watching.